Today on Locked On NBA, Luka Doncic is carrying Slovenia in Eurobasket, but can he do the same for the Lakers? Plus, an early look at the MVP race and a familiar face joins Giannis in Milwaukee.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code Locked On NBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Wes Goldberg, and we're talking Luka Doncic's dominant Eurobasket performance and why we might get another first-time winner for MVP this season. And we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have one of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast, and he's a senior writer for the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt, how's it going?
Good, Wes. Happy Labor Day to everybody. Hope if you're stateside and enjoying it, hope you're outside enjoying the fall weather. I watched college football and Eurobasket all weekend. It was absolutely phenomenal. I love this time of year for sports. NBA starts up soon. We get all of them cooking. It's such a good time. How are you?
It goes from a really bleak kind of sports part of the calendar to suddenly a really good one. Like the U.S. Open was Friday night, which is always kind of fun. And then you got college football. My Miami Hurricanes won, so that's great. I don't know what the team is out there in Colorado for you guys.
Sad. It was not a great season opener for Coach Dion and the Bucks.
You're a long way from Shedor Sanders now, I guess. But let's jump right into some basketball talk. We're going to start with Luka Doncic. After scoring 39 points in a loss to France, Luka had a triple-double to lead Slovenia to an easy win over Belgium on Sunday, and its first win at Eurobasket. It's only the fourth triple-double at Eurobasket since 1995, and more importantly, it moves Slovenia into third place in their group. Just a quick refresher, the top four teams in each group of six advance to the knockout round. So you just got to be one of the top four in a group of six. Not that hard. That said, has been a little difficult for Slovenia. They will conclude group stage with games against Iceland on Tuesday and Israel on Thursday. And they, Matt, probably need to win both in order to advance here. Slovenia's roster, not very deep, certainly not as deep as some of the best teams in the tournament, but they might have the best player. Does the way Luka looks right now give you more confidence in Slovenia's chances?
I mean, he's absolutely killing it. But I also think that in Eurobasket, I'm very apprehensive about these teams that are more NBA driven, where it's like one guy does everything. Like I get really apprehensive about that because that's not the style. And it's actually has me some concerns about Serbia because Nikola Jokic in their last game, which should not have been as close as it was, really had to kind of carry them for the first time that I can remember in a long time. That happened with Team Serbia, who plays typically a very team-centric kind of approach. France, I think, is vulnerable a little bit, but probably still going to get out and advance. That Israel game, I think, is going to be the big one. Like that's going to be, I think, probably the one that decides whether or not Slovenia makes it or not.
Danny Avdia is just playing out of his mind right now for Israel. He's been one of the best players in the tournament, so that's a big part of it too. And then look, the other part of this, if we want to stick to the Locked On NBA part of this, for Lakers fans, Eurobasket, again, not the NBA, but they have to be happy with how Luka is looking. Here's more from Locked On Lakers.
And I just keep getting back to it, Andy. The amount of free throws that Luka is able to pile up in these games so far is really the sign to me of something special going on in terms of explosiveness, in terms of being able to get your body and get himself into positions to draw contact, to get himself to the line. And I know it's not NBA defenses that he's facing, but if there was a kind of a lingering concern, at least for me, it was this notion that Luka, his finishing rate at the rim has gone down since he was a rookie. And if you play that out, that trajectory of like, is he going to hit this spot where, he's just going to start not just settling for jumpers or whatever because he wants to, but maybe because he kind of has to. And at least over the summer, it looks like that's not a problem. He's getting back into the paint. He's getting to the rim. He's drawing fouls.
The only thing that really isn't working for Luka this summer in Eurobasket is the three-point shot, which Obviously, if he's shooting 20-ish% during the Lakers season, that's going to be a problem. But I don't expect it to happen. So for the time being, I'm not worried about it at all.
So I have an admission, Matt. I wanted to go find a clip for this show on Luka's performance over the weekend. I immediately went to the YouTube page for Locked On Mavericks. I forgot. I forgot that he was on the Lakers. It's still weird to me.
Make sure to let host of Locked On Mavericks, Nick Angstad, know that just to ruin his Labor Day, just a little bit. Just ruin his Labor Day just a little bit.
That said, there's been so much talk around Luka. Of course, you can always check out Locked On Lakers for great recaps on whatever it is that Luka's doing over in Eurobasket. But it's the men's health cover. It's the men's health feature. It's skinny Luka out there on the court. He's playing really well. My question to you, Matt, is very simple. Are you buying it? Are you buying it?
So there's layers here. I think it's like, look, is a guy getting in great shape ever bad? Ever for anyone? Like anyone, right? Is that ever bad? No. For an NBA player, no. At the same time, Luka's been in, Mavericks fans have said this. They've seen this where it's like, oh man, Luka looks great when he's in Eurobasket, when he's in international competition, when he's in FIBA Cup, when he's in Olympics. And then something happens and he still winds up in camp and it's like, oh, he doesn't look as good. And then by the first month of the season, a scout said to me that he's the only player that he has ever seen who can play himself out of shape. Because usually a lot of guys don't, a lot of veterans don't work out that hard to rest their bodies in the offseason. They're like, I'm going to work myself into shape by playing. And it doesn't work with Luka. The other thing I wonder is, so the free throws aspect I think is really interesting in this of, is that determined if he's got more, if he's lighter and more explosive, can he get to the line more? Except that, like, Luka's always been a free throw machine. He wasn't as much last year, but like the year before, he had like a 37% free throw rate. That was higher than Daniel Gafford. Like the year before that, he was one of the league leaders in 2023 in free throw rate. Like he's always been, if not a grifter, then like a lot of a guy that like a lot of his game is drawn from getting to the line. I don't look at Eurobasket. What I think is interesting about the Eurobasket part of this is, they kind of mentioned, I know it's not against NBA defense. I'm like, well, look, some parts of Eurobasket defense are harder. Not all of it, but the athleticism is not as much, but it's just a different style game. I'll keep hammering this on the show. But I will kind of note that it's interesting because there aren't as many fouls called in international competition. So the fact that he is racking these up, I do think is positive. But for me, it's like, look, I'm going to buy in when it's January and he still looks like a monster, when he is still svelte and he is still killing teams and he hasn't had to miss any time with minor, soft tissue injuries. When we get to January and Luka's still doing this, that's when I'll be like, okay, like we've seen the results, because this is very much I think a results over process type of situation that you have to analyze.
I think you mentioned the key thing there, the injuries, right? He can look good on a 1-game basis, Eurobasket, NBA, whatever it is. And he mostly does look good, right? Everything is relative when we're talking about Luka Doncic. He's usually always playing on an all NBA level. It's whether or not he's on your MVP ballot level is sort of the difference with him. But we're not going to know whether or not this new version of Luka is really a new version of Luka until we've got a much larger sample size in order to judge it from, and he's able to stay out there and be on the court and not play himself out of shape like that scout told you. When I'm watching these Eurobasket games, though, in terms of what I'm watching on the court, I do want to see whether or not he's blowing by guys and getting to the rim and forcing fouls. That said, when you're going against 5 Bosnians as opposed to 5 NBA players, it is just a little bit different, right? These guys can't stay in front of him. It's the Luka, he drives by, it's the high pick and roll, it's all the stuff we see in the NBA, and then he gets by 2 guys, and then he stops on that dime like he always can, right? Which he talked about at length to Men's Health. Wow, he's actually a super athlete because he could stop really fast. But part of it, that is true. And these guys just fly by him. They have and they fly by him, and an arm hits him in the shoulder, and next thing you know, he's at the free throw line. And that stuff doesn't tend to happen as much as the NBA level, although to your point, he's definitely done it there. But look, if Lakers fans want to buy in. I guess my final question to you here, Matt, is if Luka is this at the NBA level, if we just assume all the nice things and all the good things with Luka, does that change the way? Does it rethink where the Lakers are in the West to you?
No, because I already think that they're going to be good. I already think that their ceiling is a championship contender level. I have them below that right now. Like I think they're already there. Like Luka wasn't bad before. Like it's not
Right.
like this is Zion Williamson. Like
We're not talking
he was
about Zion. We're not talking about Ben Simmons here.
Yeah, like this is still a top 3 player in the NBA. So it's
Right.
like, you know, I understand that the Lakers are like, well, what if he's even better? Okay, it's like there's ceilings, there's caps to this, right? I do think I often say this is like with teams where it's like they've done everything they can, right? I had no reason to doubt the Cavaliers last year. You could be like, well, look what happened. Okay, but they did everything they could do in the regular season, and then the Pacers series happened. The Lakers, Luka's doing everything he can to show us that this is going to be the best version of himself. And the best version of himself is a championship level player. There's a lot that goes into him winning a championship, but we can at least go into the season believing that Luka Doncic is doing everything that he needs to do to deliver a championship for the Lakers.
So we're going to stick with Eurobasket here for a little bit longer. Serbia is overwhelmingly the favorite to win the tournament, but could somebody else upset them over the next few weeks? Plus, we'll take an early look at the MVP race in which first-timers could make a push for the award. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You know how NBA players have money managers and people who handle all their finances for them so that they can just focus on basketball? Well, Monarch Money isn't quite that, but it's pretty close, and it's as close as you're going to get. So it puts all of your finances in one place, helps you identify easy ways to save and plan for your future. So the next time you sign your $40 million salary, you'll know exactly what to do with it, whether it's maximizing investments, increasing your savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner, and keeping a clear view of your financial health. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Welcome back to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. We're one of the most listened to podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we're on a mission to become the most watched show on the network. So if you've been listening, please support the show with a sub on YouTube. Hit that button right now while you're watching. Matt, this game is called More Likely. The rules are pretty simple. I'll propose 2 different scenarios. I'm going to ask you which one is more likely. Are you following?
Let's go.
All right. Very good. Let's start with Eurobasket. Serbia versus the field. More likely. Is it more likely that Serbia will just win Eurobasket outright as the overwhelming favorites, or more likely that somebody else does?
Well, as host of Locked On Nuggets, I'm of course going to say the field. It's the field. I don't understand. Like, I personally do not even think Serbia should be the favorite. I think Germany should be the favorite. They're a tank. Like, they are just rolling. With Franz Wagner, Dennis Schroeder, former FIBA World Cup MVP, they have been amazing, and they have more ways to hurt you. They're not as dependent as Serbia is. Serbia just lost Bogdan Bogdanovic to a ruptured hamstring. That's probably going to impact the Clipper season as well. Nikola Jovic was great in their early games when they were facing lesser competition, and then he's like started to disappear a little bit, and that I think needs to be very concerning given the contributions that he was providing. And I do have some questions about whether Jovic is going to be like, can Jovic do this against France? Can Jovic do this against Germany? Can Jovic do this against these other teams? Greece, I'm a little skeptical of. Like, Giannis is playing awesome. It's really the best thing about Eurobasket is how well all of the mega stars are playing. Like Luka, Jokic, and Giannis have all been absolute tanks. And then you got guys like Franz Wagner and all these other dudes. I also like look down the board, and I think that there's upset potential with some of these teams. In particular, like I look at a team, Finland shooting 40% from 3, and like that doesn't seem sustainable. If it is, that equalizes a lot of the differences that Finland has versus the rest of the field. Like their roster is not as good, but Lauri Markkanen has been unbelievable. Like they've got an NBA superstar that can boost them up and get them into that conversation. And if their 3-point rate puts them within range, now you're talking about variance. and that gets very interesting. Like Serbia, to me, it's Germany and Serbia, and then everybody else. But if it's Serbia versus the field, I'm taking the field.
Bogdan Bogdanovic's injury obviously impacts this as well, right?
Yep.
Serbia, you could make an argument that they shouldn't even be the favorites in their own group with the way Turkey is playing.
Yeah, Turkey's been amazing. That game versus Alperen Şengün and Turkey is going to be that's going to be must-watch television for any hoops fan.
Can't wait to hear Jackson Gatlin talk about that on Locked On Rockets. I'm sure there will be no hyperbole involved in that one. More likely that we get a new MVP winner, or first-time MVP winner, or a repeat MVP winner this upcoming NBA season?
So I will say a new one based off of a lot of the research that you do. If you do research on this award, it will tell you that once you pass 29, you don't win this award. Jokic over 30, Giannis over 30, Embiid over 30. So those last three winners are out. And now you're down to like Shea, obviously can go back to back. That's possible. And the Thunder are expected to win a ton of games. Everyone believes that they're going to win, 60 to 70 games is kind of the standard everybody's got them in. And that definitely puts Shea within range of another MVP. I do think it's going to be hard because his statistical profile wasn't that exceptional last season, despite leading the league in scoring. And I think having what do you do for an encore? How do you, because you do kind of have to play against yourself in MVP conversations. It's all right, but last year, this year wasn't as good as last year. What's new? So you do have all these other ones. And with Luka, going back to him, never having won despite being the favorite for 4 years, playing on the Los Angeles Lakers, to me, there's a very good chance that Luka wins. And then you get the possibility of a dark horse coming out. And I think especially because I don't think the MVP is as much of a narrative award as it's discussed as. I think narrative plays a part with some voters, but those narratives are also built often on facts. If the Pistons were to shock everybody and wind up winning 55 plus games, let's say that they were second in the Eastern Conference, right behind the Cavs, that Donovan Mitchell, nor Darius Garland, nor Evan Mobley had elite seasons. They were just the Cavs again. They were really good all around. But Cade Cunningham was unbelievable. Or you can sub in the Hawks with Trey Young, or you can sub in the Magic with Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner. If that happens, then it's going to be look at this team and look at what he's done. You're going to have the metrics to back it up. But I will say, we've already set the standard that if Jokic doesn't have to win with the statistical performance that he put in last year, no one has to win with the statistical performance they put in last year. Wins matter more than anything. And I think they matter more than anything now. So I do think new first-time winner is more likely.
So if we do get a new first-time winner, that would be the first time we have back-to-back first-time winners since 2018 and 2019. James Harden won in 2018. Giannis won the first of his back-to-backs in 2019. So that was Harden's first and only, and then that was Giannis's first of the two. So it's been a little while since we've had back-to-back MVPs, although at the same time, it's not totally, unpopular. It's not without precedent, right? This stuff does tend to happen. We haven't really had that what you described with a Cade Cunningham or a Paolo Banchero. We haven't had that kind of MVP, I feel like, since maybe Steph's first or Derrick Rose, even if you want to throw him into that. We haven't really had that. It's been a pretty good run of just arguing between Giannis, Jokic, and for the most part, Embiid until the last couple of years. It's kind of just been that argument for the better part of the last half decade. So maybe we are moving into something new here. Maybe that is Luka, who is among the favorites. Maybe it's somebody like Victor Wembanyama, although I do think that feels a little bit early for him. Anthony Edwards in the mix. Maybe it's somebody that's been around but hasn't really been thought of in this way. Maybe it is a Jalen Brunson type or a Donovan Mitchell type who's always kind of been on the fringe, and maybe by virtue of them being in the East and maybe perhaps being the number one seed, they can get in. So I go with you. I'll agree with you. I think we're going to get it. I think it's more likely we get another new first-time MVP as well.
So an interesting wrinkle with this is that you do have to have a little bit of a resume. Where, especially playoffs, we saw this in 24 where Shea, I actually think had a really good case to win it that year, right? Thunder got the one seed the year, last year, the year before this last season. And there was a reluctance because we just hadn't seen Shea in a playoff environment. We hadn't seen him as the guy in a playoff run, but we've seen Luka as a guy in a playoff run. Cade has made the playoffs and was impressive in that Knicks series. Trey Young, we've seen make a playoff run. So it's like these kind of guys. So I think when we look at Victor, that's maybe the biggest thing I think that holds Victor back is there is this kind of reluctance, but the fact that Victor is just Victor, I think does trump a lot of it. It's an issue.
And it feels like people are ready to just anoint him
Crown
as
him.
soon as
they're ready.
Yeah, people are ready. We're going to try to get one more of these in here after the break. Plus, the Mavericks, they officially signed Dante Exum on Monday morning, and the Bucks made a roster move directed at pleasing Giannis. But to any of these moves, move the needle. Talk about that next. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That is huge for NFL kickoff. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add all the a little bit more energy into your Sundays. Plus, the NBA is still here. We just talked about NBA MVP. The NBA MVP odds are up. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, surprisingly, is the favorite, has the best odds to repeat as MVP. Behind him, it's Nikola Jokic, and behind him, it's Luka. We've got Giannis, Victor Wembanyama at plus 1,400, who we talked about, and then Anthony Edwards at plus 2,000. You keep going down the list. Maybe you're a Jalen Brunson, maybe it's a Cade Cunningham, maybe it's some of these other guys that we talked about. Get in early. If you think Luka, for instance, is laying the foundation for an MVP run in Eurobasket right now, now is the time to place your bet. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get that started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. I've got one more likely for you before we move on to some of our news items, Matt. Is it more likely? We're gonna go deep cut here because we're not just the headlines here. We're not just playing the hits. We got some deep cuts here. Is it more likely that Trey Murphy III or Zion is the more impactful player for the Pelicans this season?
I think Trey Murphy III. And here's like a weird thing. Everyone very rightfully has just pilloried the Pelicans for this offseason for trading the pick for all these types of things. But I do think that these organizations see players up close and personal. There is an internal belief in Trey Murphy that I think people do not recognize. And like there were moments, he had a lot of moments last season where he looked like the guy and that he could be the guy if they just had a little bit of help around him. The team, I think, very clearly feels like Trey Murphy can be that guy. And you know, with Zion, it's on court, it's off court, it's injury status. It's all when he plays, he's still a monster. But I think it's easier to build a team if he doesn't have to be the monster. If your team doesn't rely on him being the monster, if it's like, yeah, and Zion's a monster, that's easier to build. And I think Trey really is kind of coming into his own as far as being that level of player. I think he's got the capacity to do that. So I'm going to say Trey Murphy III is the more impactful player for the Pelicans, not only for his availability, but because genuinely I think that Trey is able, because of his consistency, to shape the game and lead that team in a way that Zion isn't.
He's the kind of player you want in today's NBA too. Long, defensively rangy, hits threes, can do more stuff off the dribble. He had 40-point games against Denver and Boston last year. Like, the signs are there. And there's been reports that, you know, teams have been calling New Orleans about Trey Murphy, and they're just like, no, it's not happening. I
mean, they've been doing this consistently, and we'll see what happens with Dumars and company in charge and Weaver. But, you know, the whole thing was everybody was like, oh, they have interest in Trey Murphy. Oh, they have interest in Herb Jones. And then like the Pelicans were like, no, absolutely not. Like I had heard that they were seriously looking at trading Herb Jones. And then I realized later that all it was is they were going to sign him to the extension. And they did the same due diligence that everybody does now, which is if you're going to assign a guy to an extension, you see what his trade value is before. So they're not moving Herb Jones. They're not moving Trey Murphy, at least not right now.
You could check out more on Trey Murphy III on Locked On Pelicans, where Jake Madison just talked about this pretty recently. Let's get to some NBA news here, though. The Mavericks have officially signed Dante Exum. They made room for him on the roster by waiving Olivier Maxence Prosper over the weekend. Look, we know Dallas needs backcourt help, especially with Kyrie out. They did sign D'Angelo Russell over the summer, but Matt, does this move the needle enough for them?
A little bit for me, just because I was very much like, they don't have a point guard. Like, they don't have one. They have, like, it's D'Lo. That's it. And I'm still very low on them because Dante just can't stay on the floor. But Dante has somehow turned into a great shooter, and Dante is a guy that will actually set the floor. Like Dante can bring the ball up and get everybody organized in a way, honestly, that D'Lo can't. So just having that skill set does make me be like, okay, they do have Dante in whatever minutes he's able to play, but I'm going to have to see Dante stay healthy through a season, man. Like, poor guy just cannot stay on the floor. He's great when he plays, though.
It's one of those things where you walk into a restaurant and you're like, you sit at the table and you're like, do we have a server? Or is this one of those situations where we have to go to the counter? Dante Exum is the server. He's like, oh, no, we have a server. Okay, that's good. I don't have to get up and get my own burger anymore.
Yes,
that's nice. The Bucks have re-signed Giannis Antetokounmpo's brother Thanasis to a 1-year deal. Thanasis last played for the Bucks 2 seasons ago. He missed last season with a torn Achilles. Both Giannis and Thanasis are currently playing for Greece at Eurobasket. There has been plenty of speculation about Giannis's future in Milwaukee. But Matt, what do you make of the Bucks using a roster spot again to bring back his brother?
So this is actually being underreported because, in large part, like I've defended Shams Charania from accusations that he's trying to build a narrative of like he's trying to force Giannis out of Milwaukee through these trade reports. He did not do himself any favors with the way that he phrased this because, like, look at the tweet where he reported this. Thanasis Antetokounmpo is signing a guaranteed 1-year, $2.9 million deal to return to the Bucks, sources tell ESPN. Antetokounmpo played for the Bucks from 2019 to 24. Here's the important part. This also means after a summer of exploring options, Giannis is staying in Milwaukee to start the season. Like, that's the headline, man. Like, you should start with, like, Giannis is staying, and here's the proof Thanasis is signed. Because that was my reaction before I even saw this line from Shams. Once I saw the I think it was an Instagram post from Thanasis saying I'm back, I was like, oh, it's done. Because, like, I had been in the same camp of, like, look, I will believe that Giannis is coming back. Whenever Giannis makes the declaration, I'm coming back. But this is a declaration that Giannis is coming back. Is that Thanasis signs, and they only sign Thanasis if Giannis is given assurances that he's not going anywhere. Because otherwise they would need the roster spot for whatever it is they were going to do next and for trade, viability. So, like, this is a big deal. Giannis is not getting traded this summer. He's not getting traded before training camp. I don't know what, like, now it shifts to before the deadline. But the Bucks, once again, to their ever-ending credit, are off of the Giannis ledge and are once again keeping Giannis in Milwaukee.
For now.
Right.
For now. Well said.
Everything is for now, Wes. We're all alive for now.
True. It's a great time. It's a great time to be alive. Speaking of things that are no longer going on, Linsanity is officially over. That was a tough transition. I'm sorry. That was whatever. It was like more than a decade ago. Jeremy Lin announced his retirement from basketball over the weekend. Lin has not played in the NBA since 2019, but most recently played professionally in Taiwan, where he's coming off of back-to-back championships. In his retirement post on social media, Lin said, quote, "It's been the honor of a lifetime to compete against the fiercest competitors under the brightest lights and to challenge what the world thought was possible for someone who looks like me." End quote. It was a much longer post. That's the part that I pulled out. Matt, we all remember Linsanity in 2012. Jeremy Lin inserted into the lineup after Carmelo Anthony goes down for the Knicks, leads the Knicks to a 7-game win streak. He's got that huge game against Kobe Bryant. It sets the NBA world on fire. What do you remember about Linsanity?
The game against Kobe, the absolute like madness of that game against Kobe. I remember Carmelo freezing him out. That was fun, about him being so jealous of the attention that Lin got. That month was just nuts. It was so much fun, and it was appointment viewing. Like, everyone was like leading up, and it was like, and in the beginning, it happened one time. We're like, okay, cool. And then it starts happening again. And like the tweets would go out of like, get over to ESPN. It's happening again. Yeah. And everyone's rushing over to go check this out. Unbelievable. If you are a Knicks fan, or if you remember this time period, there's a great book by Jim Cavan, Seth Rosenthal, Robert Silverman, Mike Curlow, called "We'll Always Have Linsanity." You can pick it up anywhere, including the big shops. Just Google "We'll Always Have Linsanity." Great book. Go check it out. But yeah, go if you're young and you're like, whomst? Go YouTube Jeremy Lin and see the clips of how insane that sequence was. It was one of the most memorable runs in regular season basketball history, and I'm not exaggerating. That's how intense and crazy it was.
It was joyous. There wasn't a bad part about it. It was just one of those things where like everybody was in. Everybody was like, "This is crazy. This guy came out of nowhere. He was from Harvard." It's like, what? This Harvard kid? Like, what's going on? It was crazy. And you mentioned the tweets, and I'm glad you brought that up because you're sort of like one of the founding fathers of like NBA Twitter, and that's what I think of when I think about Linsanity. I think about me being on NBA Twitter really for the first time because you're right. The tweets would go out, and it was sort of the first sort of to me league pass alert. It was, oh my God, Jeremy Lin's doing it again. You got to be watching this game. And it was, to me, one of the first times I felt like I was watching the game and second screening for something that wasn't LeBron James. You know what I mean? Like for something that wasn't something, historically, it was this alert that you had to be in front of your TV, and we're sort of all experiencing this new thing at the same time. And I thought that was pretty cool about it. That's what I remember.
Absolutely. Like the joy, I think, is a really good component here. Knicks fans had so little to be happy about, and this really, like, it was cool to see the Knicks fans joyous for a little while. And now, like, they get to pretend that they're actual contenders, which is neat for them.
Yeah, great for them. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Thanks to Matt for your expertise. Thanks for you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.